My name is Arthur Finch. For 42 years, I built Finch & Son hardware from a broken-down tool shed into a multi-million-dollar empire. I thought my legacy was secure. I was a fool. The moment that shattered me wasn't a business collapse. It was the sound of my son's laughter. "Dad," Liam said, his voice slick with a mockery I'd never heard before. "The floor, it's filthy. You've got time, make yourself useful." I stood in the grand foyer of the house I paid for, my bones aching from a lifetime of labor. My daughter-in-law, Chloe, stood beside him, her phone already up, the red recording light a tiny, malevolent eye. "Liam," I said, my voice low, "don't do this." "Don't do what?" he asked, his smile widening. "It's just a little cleaning. You're always saying hard work built this family, so work." Chloe giggled, a high, cruel sound. "It'll be a great memory, Arthur, for the grandkids." The weight of their stares pressed me down. My knees, old and worn from decades of standing on concrete floors, cracked as I lowered myself. The cold marble I'd personally helped install felt like ice against my skin. The cloth in my hand was a humiliation. As I wiped, I could hear the soft SHHH click of Chloe's phone, preserving my shame from every angle. Liam leaned over me, his shadow swallowing the light. "You missed a spot, old man." His wife's laughter echoed his, sharp and unending. In that moment, something broke. Not my body, but the last fragile thread of love for my only child. The man I'd taught to swing a hammer, the boy I'd carried on my shoulders, was dead. In his place was a stranger dripping with my wealth. But they were so stupid. In their arrogance, they forgot one simple, brutal fact. The power they flaunted was never theirs. It was always mine. Before I tell you how I erased my son's entire world with a single signature, tell me something. Where are you watching this from? Type it in the comments. And if you understand what it means to be betrayed by your own blood, hit subscribe. Because my story is just beginning, and what I did next, you won't see it coming. My life was not given to me. It was clawed from nothing. I started with a second-hand toolbox and a 1978 Ford pickup that broke down more often than it ran. While other kids partied, I was in that truck, driving through snowstorms to bid on contracts I was too young to win. I ate cold beans from a can because every dollar went back into the business. When Liam was born, I held his tiny hand and made a vow. He would never know that struggle. He would inherit an empire. That vow became my prison. I handed him the keys at 25, not just to the company car, but to the entire operation. I trusted him. I saw my own ambition in his eyes, or so I thought. What I actually saw was a hunger without the discipline, a desire for the reward with zero respect for the grind. The first red flag was the Porsche, a bright red 911 paid for from a company account labeled equipment upgrades. When I confronted him, he just smirked. "Image is everything, Dad. You wouldn't understand." He replaced loyal, seasoned foremen with yes-men who praised his vision. He took on massive debts to fund lavish office renovations, while our suppliers went unpaid. The careful, honest reputation I'd spent a lifetime building was being torched for his ego. And the respect he once showed me vanished. I became a ghost in my own company. The old man, a relic. His jokes about my trembling hands, my outdated suits, they were small cuts, but they bled me dry. The day before the floor incident, I went to the office. I found him and Chloe in my old chair, feet up on my desk, drinking Macallan 50 from the bottle I'd been saving for his 30th anniversary with the company. "Dad," he said, not even bothering to put his feet down, "we're just celebrating the new corporate jet fund." There was no jet fund, it was a joke, and I was the punchline. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the memory of their laughter ringing in my ears, and then I remembered the box. A simple, fireproof lockbox in my closet. Inside, the legal foundation of my entire life. The original incorporation papers for Finch Holdings, LLC, the operating agreement. The one that stated, in unbreakable legal language, that Liam was merely a managing member with assigned operational duties. The one that gave me, Arthur Finch, sole and unilateral authority as the principal member too. And I remember my lawyer's exact words as he made me sign it. Dissolve, sell, or transfer all company assets without the consent or notice of any other party. He had the title of CEO. I held the power of God. The plan didn't come from a place of hot rage. It came from a cold, still, and absolute place of finality. This wasn't about punishment. This was about reclamation. My lawyer, Frank Evans, a man who'd seen families torn apart by money more times than he could count, just nodded when I showed him the phone video Chloe had so kindly made. "We can move fast, Arthur," Frank said, his voice devoid of emotion. "He's been reckless. The debts he's taken on make the company a tempting target for a quick, asset-stripping sale. We can get it done before he knows what hit him." The buyers were a private equity firm known for carving up companies like holiday turkeys. They didn't want the Finch and Son legacy. They wanted the real estate, the client list, the equipment. They were vultures, and I was about to lead them to the feast. For the next 72 hours, I became the man I was in my 20s, ruthless, focused, and unstoppable. While Liam and Chloe were at a weekend spa, charging the trip to the company, I was in Frank's office. I signed the letter of intent. I signed the asset purchase agreement. I signed the documents that authorized the immediate liquidation of all company bank accounts and lines of credit. Every stroke of the pen was the sound of a lock clicking shut on my son's future. The final signature was on the bill of sale. At 4:13 p.m. on a Tuesday, Finch and Son Hardware, a name that had meant everything to me, ceased to exist. It was now a subsidiary of Apex Capital Partners. The silence after the storm was deafening. I went home and waited. The first sign they saw was denial. Literally. Liam tried to buy champagne at a restaurant that evening to celebrate closing a big deal, a deal he had nothing to do with. His corporate Amex was declined. He laughed it off, bank error. The second sign was confusion. The next morning, his keycard didn't work at the main office. He had to buzz in like a visitor. When the door opened, two men in crisp suits he'd never seen before were standing in the lobby. "Liam Finch," one said, "I'm with Apex Capital. You need to vacate the premises immediately. All personal effects have been boxed and are at the reception." I was watching from my car across the street. I saw his face through the glass doors. The confusion. Then the dawning horror. He fumbled for his phone, calling, no doubt, his yes men. He was screaming into the receiver, his face turning a terrifying shade of purple. That's when he saw me. Our eyes met across the distance. The recognition in his was instantaneous. He knew. In that single, frozen second, he understood exactly who had done this and why. He exploded out of the doors, not even a coat on in the cold, his dress shoes slipping on the icy pavement. "You," he screamed, his voice raw. "What did you do?" I rolled down my window. The cold air was bracing. I felt nothing but a profound, glacial calm. "I took back what was always mine, son." His face crumpled. "The business, my house, the cars, you can't." "I already did," I said, my voice flat. "The house is in the company's name. It's an asset. It belongs to Apex now. I suggest you go get your things before they change the locks." The sound that came out of him was half sob, half roar. It was the sound of a man watching his entire identity disintegrate in front of him. Chloe pulled up then in her Mercedes, the one I was still making payments on. She got out, her face a mask of confusion. "Liam, what's going on? Why are there strangers in your office?" He couldn't even speak. He just pointed a trembling finger at me. Her eyes widened as she understood. The color drained from her face. "Arthur, you monster, he's your son." I looked at her, at the woman who had filmed my humiliation for her social media feed. "No," I said, my voice quiet but absolute. A son honors his father. That man is just a debtor, and his debt is now due. I rolled up the window, blocking out their screams. I started the car and pulled away, leaving them standing in the cold. A king and queen dethroned on a sidewalk, their kingdom gone, their power revealed as the pathetic illusion it always was. But this was only the beginning. Taking his empire was just the first move. He still thought he had cards to play. He thought he could fight back. He was wrong. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just cutting him off. I was setting him up for a fall so hard he would never, ever get back up. And the weapon I would use next was the law itself. You thought the story ended when I drove away from my screaming son. No, that was just the end of the prologue. The real revenge hadn't even begun. You see, Liam and Chloe didn't just lose their money that day. They lost their minds. And a desperate man is a stupid man. He handed me the final pieces to destroy him completely. While I moved into a quiet, paid-in-cash condo overlooking the sea, my son was unraveling. The first call came at 3 a.m. "Dad," his voice was a broken thing stripped of all its arrogance. "You have to stop this. They're taking the house. The cars are gone. Chloe's. She's leaving me." I took a slow sip of water. "And you filmed me cleaning the floor, Liam. Which one of us is the real monster?" He started sobbing. It was a wet, ugly sound. "I'm sorry, I was stupid. It was a joke." "It's never a joke," I said, my voice like steel. "It's a choice. You chose to humiliate the man who gave you everything. Now you have nothing. The math is simple." He hung up. That was his mistake, because when apology failed, he turned to threats, and that's when I knew I had him. His threat came in the form of a lawsuit, a pathetic, flailing document accusing me of elder financial abuse and fraudulent transfer of assets. He claimed I was senile, manipulated by my lawyer, that the sale wasn't valid. He thought the law could save him. He didn't realize I was the law. I had spent 40 years building contracts thicker than his skull. I knew every clause, every loophole, every single word that protected me. My lawyer, Frank, almost laughed when he saw the papers. "Arthur," he said, "he's just given us the weapon to bury him for good." You see, by filing this lawsuit, Liam opened up his entire financial life to what's called discovery. I could now legally demand every record, every transaction, every secret he had. And I knew what I would find. The same recklessness that made him mock me had also made him sloppy. He'd been bleeding the company dry for years, and I had the evidence waiting. We filed a countersuit, not for a small amount, for $17 million, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud. The day he was served, he showed up at my condo. He looked like a ghost. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes wild. "You're suing me," he shrieked, "for $17 million. "No, Liam," I said calmly, not even inviting him in. "I'm not suing you. The company is, or rather its new owners, Apex Capital, and since you personally guaranteed several of those company loans, it's your personal debt now. You owe them $17 million. The blood drained from his face. He hadn't read the fine print. He never did. He'd signed those loans so he could buy a boat. You set me up." "I built a cage," I corrected him, "and you walked right into it. You thought the lawsuit was your way out. It was the final lock on the door." The court case wasn't a battle. It was an execution. My lawyers presented a slideshow of his spending. Company funds transferred to his personal account for consulting fees that were just vacations. The Porsche, the jewelry for Chloe, the $100,000 loss from a single night at a high-stakes poker game. The judge's face was stone. Liam's lawyer barely said a word in his defense. There was nothing to say. The judgment came down like a guillotine. Liam was found personally liable. He owed Apex Capital $17,322,000, every cent. They seized everything left, his personal bank accounts, his watch collection, the last shred of his dignity. But it still wasn't enough. The debt was too large. And that's when the final, beautiful piece of the plan fell into place: bankruptcy. Liam filed for Chapter 7. He stood in a federal courtroom and declared himself a pauper. It wiped away the debt to Apex. He thought he was free. He was wrong. He was finally in the position I wanted him in all along: penniless, with a publicly ruined credit history and a bankruptcy on his record for the next 10 years. He was 38 years old, and he was financially dead. Shift in tone, more introspective but still sharp. People ask me if I feel guilty, if I lay awake at night, haunted by what I did to my only child. Let me tell you what haunts me: the sound of my knees cracking on that marble floor, the sound of his wife's laughter, the look in his eyes when he commanded me, his father, like a servant. That is what I remember, not his downfall. I didn't destroy him out of hate. I did it to reclaim my soul. Every man has a line. He crossed it. And when you cross that line, you become a stranger to me. Blood means nothing when respect is gone. After the bankruptcy, he vanished. Chloe left him, of course. She wasn't built for poverty. The last I heard, he was working construction for a former employee he'd once fired for being too old. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. As for me, I live a simple life. The money from the sale is more than enough, but my real wealth is my peace. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I feel isn't dread. It's quiet. I won. But this isn't just my story. It's a warning. A warning to every entitled child who thinks their parents' sacrifice is a given. A warning to every son or daughter who looks at their aging father and sees a burden instead of the architect of their life. You think the old man is weak. You think he doesn't understand the modern world. You think his love is a leash you can pull forever. Think again. The same hands that built you up can tear you down. The same signature that created your world can erase it. Because true power isn't loud. It isn't fast cars or big talk. True power is quiet. It's in the documents. It's in the patience. It's in the memory of every sacrifice, every drop of sweat, and the unbreakable will of a man who has nothing left to lose. If you have a parent who sacrificed for you, you go call them. Right now. You tell them you respect them. You honor them. Because you never know what kind of quiet strength is sleeping inside the person you're taking for granted. And if you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been pushed to your knees, remember my story. You can always get back up, and when you do, you hold all the power. This was my truth. This was my justice. If you understand that some lines should never be crossed, leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe. Because the world is full of stories like mine, and you won't want to miss the next one.